In this video, we'll explore the area and circumference of circles. Now let's just go through some of the parts of a circle. First, the diameter is the distance from one side of the circle to the other going through the center, whereas the radius is from the center just to one edge, so it's half of the diameter. So that's the relationship between those. The radius is half the diameter. The circumference is the length around the circle. You can think of that as like the perimeter of our circle, and then the area will be our space inside. So when we talk about circumference, we have two different formulas we can use. Either the diameter length times pi, or 2 times the radius length times pi. And we would be doubling the radius because 2 times the radius is the diameter. So say we want to look at two pizzas, a 14-inch and a 12-inch pizza. And we want to say, how do they compare in circumference? So if we think about that, what we have there is the diameter. So we know we were going to do the circumference using the diameter because that's 12 inches across the pizza. So circumference would be 12 inches times pi. And I could approximate that to give us an actual value. Multiply that together, and I get about 37 7/10 inches for the circumference of a 12-inch pizza. If I did that with the 14-inch, again, that's the diameter, so it's diameter times pi. Get an approximate value for pi, and it's about 44 inches. So if I want to know what's the difference in those two circumferences, I would subtract the smaller from the larger and see that the 14-inch pizza has about 6.3 inches more in its circumference. Now if we want to do area, for area we have to use the radius. We square that and we multiply by pi. You often hear pi r squared. So say we want to compare the area of that 14-inch pizza with the area of the 12-inch pizza. So if we have our 12-inch pizza, we have to recognize we want the radius, not the diameter. So our radius would be 6 inches. So pi times 6 squared would give us the area. And we can approximate pi, and then we square our values. We get about 113 1/10 square inches for the 12-inch pizza. We do that with the 14-inch pizza. We have to pay attention, say the radius is 7 inches. So then 7 squared times pi, we are going to approximate that value for pi to about 3.1415. And we find that that's about 153 9/10 square inches. So the difference in size of those two pizzas, we would subtract their areas and find that the 14-inch pizza has about 40 8/10 square inches more pizza than a 12-inch pizza. Now if we want to extend that and say, I know that we take a typical 12-inch pizza and it serves 6 people. And if I want to serve the same size per slice, the same amount of area per slice, how many people could I serve with a 14-inch pizza? So the first thing there is to start with that idea of serving 6 people with a 12-inch pizza. So that would be meaning I would be taking the area of my 12-inch pizza and splitting it into 6 parts. So I know my area, and I want to split that into 6 pieces, so I divide by 6. And that would give me about 18 9/10 square inches per slice. Now if I want to do a 14-inch pizza, and I want to know how many people could I serve that have that same size slice, what I would end up doing is taking my area and I'm going to divide it by the size per slice. And if I do that, it's 153 9/10 square inches divided by that 18 9/10 square inches, and that gives me about 8 1/10 servings. So I could serve about 8 people. So I would split my pizza into 8 parts, and that would give me a good idea about how many people I could serve with that same size. Now the last thing I could do is actually use circles and parts of circles to help me if I have problems where I need to use the additivity principle. For example, this is a very odd looking shape. However, first thing I could do is draw in parts that would make it look much simpler. So if I draw in those two sides, I end up with a rectangle that's 12 by 8 and then 2 semicircles. Now the area of the rectangle we know is length times width. So 96 square centimeters. Now, if I look at my small semicircle, which is right here, I can see that the diameter is 8 centimeters, and that looks like, and it is half of a circle. That's why it's called a semicircle. So, if my diameter is 8, I know my radius is 4 centimeters. And then I can think about my area of a circle, which is pi r squared, but since I'm dealing with half of a circle, I'd be doing half of pi r squared, which would give me about 8 pi, or 25 1/1300 square centimeters. Now I do the same thing for the large semicircle. Again, it's a half of a circle, and I know my diameter is 12 centimeters, so my radius would be 6. So then I do half of my area of pi r squared, and that's going to give me about 18 pi, or about 56 5500 square centimeters. Now if I want to do the entire area, I just add my 3 areas together. 96 square centimeters plus 25 1300 square centimeters plus 56 5500 square centimeters gives me about 177 68 square centimeters.